Meeting of the council on 2024, starting at 6 p.m. I'd like to welcome those present as well as those who are watching us. Call this meeting to order. Meeting is being live streamed, so what happens is it's live streamed on an Natural YouTube channel. Image, but it's being recorded. Chair and CAO discussion any type of termination or interruption of live streaming. Never had to do. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. So far, so good. We have council present, therefore we have quorum. Few additions to the agenda that came in. One is that we are not dealing with motion 10 after motions from the marketing. Addition to the encounter under section 22 municipal government, and that is illegal. Any if there are any additions to the agenda, then it's approved by consent. Changes to council. Yeah. So
It came to council, first of all, I'd like to recognize we're in the presence of an all-female council, very pleased to do so. This is very historic for the town of Ivensville, and congratulations to you all. On behalf of the partner here, and give it to the previous council, to for the new council to speak on what field traffic requirements are now, especially aging apparatus that we have currently now. Alex has done a lot of research on this, and with many years of experience with the guys and girls at the hall, we have come up with something that we think that may be tangible for everybody here to look at in the presentation that hopefully got circulated, and then Alex can speak about this a little bit further.
Okay, I've got this for a bit, so I can kind of talk as I guess. The town truck is soon in need of replacement. Town's truck is a 2002 E1, 22 years old. The underwriters state that a frontline fire engine has a frontline lifespan of 20 years. Right now, we use our county funded truck to cover this 20-year rule. The E1 is still meeting basic needs for the jobs it is used for, but the conversation needs to be started on a decision moving forward. Agencies as of right now that we know of, they have a leaking seal gearbox, siren equipment is in replacement, worn door gaskets, it's got old lighting, halogen lighting on it. PTO generator, lights around the truck on a scene is using oil. It can't be a frontline fire truck anymore as it's past its 20-year rule. The cabin hinges are starting to become worn. It's showing a lot of some rust on the frame, but now we've learned that it's showing more. The AC and the heat are working, but the AC needs a lot of work to get it back up to where it should be. It's got a few leaks in the system. These are some examples of things at the age of the truck is starting to show. Some fire department members have shown interest, and the conversation has been brought to the attention of the town CAO with the possibility of replacing this truck with aerial apparatus. Currently, we have a wait time of approximately 40 to 50 minutes for our closest aerial truck to arrive on of this piece of equipment, how it can be utilized in the area. It's already having a pump truck at the fire station, we feel that acquiring another apparatus to do the same job may not be the best direction to go, and purchasing an aerial will allow us to broaden our capabilities and be able to respond faster to emergencies that will require an aerial. Some emergencies we do around the area now are completed with a fire pumper, or could be completed with an aerial device. Examples of jobs for an aerial: steel roofs, the academy condos, town hall, major fires, high elevation, AWAC school, all connected or close buildings downtown, and chimney fires. An aerial can be used for a lot more than just structural firefighting. There's a large spectrum of jobs for this device. Recently, a fire study that was hired by the County of Annapolis, who have done for our fire service, there were 3 options for our fire department for future succession planning. All 3 of these options have recommendation. All these options have the recommendation of state need for an aerial apparatus, especially in the town of Troy. We would like to ask that the council take into consideration this recommendation, replace the current truck, not only help them fire firefighters provide to us, but also assist in making our jobs easier for difficult tasks that we face while doing this job. As mentioned before, the Whiskey Teller fire we faced downtown Naples Royal opened our eyes as a fire department on how much we currently utilize and your apparatus. There are operators that we expect out. Just a single axle truck that's around 4 feet long for the current pumper. 70. Reason of the single axle truck is that it still gives us the maneuverability around the area, but also gives us 75 feet, which will reach everything we need to. Essentially, a pumper with a ladder. One great thing about a ladder truck is that 20-year certification rule that we currently have to follow doesn't apply to them. I'm not sure why, but that's how it works. For some reason, a ladder truck doesn't need to have a 20-year certification. We would propose that we buy a used truck to help save costs, and where it will be used for specific jobs, this will work out for us. Having not to worry about the 20-year rule will allow us to buy something 2010 to 2015-ish and not have any worries. We have found a 2004 Puch Aero XT 75 for Quinn just by looking out of curiosity at a George. Discussed prior to conversations. We thank you for listening to the presentation and hope.
With you folks in this proposal, the 30 years that I've been under service, I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of challenges for us, a lot of changing building construction, makes the job 10 times harder with less staff. We used to run with a complement of about 42 to 45, we're now at 26. So we are behind the times in staff, we're behind the times in apparatus. And with moving forward, what we're doing, having this would be a great help to us and others because of the speed and the accessibility to the taller buildings. Like any one of these buildings on the front street, there was a fire. I mean, you got to have manpower to get people on the roof for safety wise and so on and so forth. This will be a complement of 5 people who could do the job, where you need 10 people to do the job with ladders and take a lot longer. So we're looking at speed. We all know the history of the town of Annapolis and the major fire that happened here many years ago. With new apparatus like this, it definitely drops the percentage of anything that catastrophic again. We can minimize it where we can, depending on the size of the fire and where it originated from. But I guess the nuts and bolts of all this, ladies and gentlemen, is that we've got to get ahead of this, and this is our only way to do it. And with working with the town CAO, I believe we can probably achieve this and yourselves.
I'll open up to questions for any member of council. Do you have questions for Roger Alex?
Question I have is, just engine hours, it says 7,059. Is that for that age of a truck? Is that?
Unfortunately, the transmissions are geared up on that. It's pump mode.
It's still counting.
Counts. It's like the kilometers on the truck. It's not an accurate picture, but we can get up with it. Anything that we look at is geared up on by anything that's secondhand. We would take what's called an EVT with us. He's an emergency vehicle technician. We'd have to hire him. Like we did in the past when we bought the town truck. We hired an EVT. We flew down to Maryland, and he spent the whole day going over the whole complete truck and looking at the manifests of the truck, all the maintenance and everything was done before we made the purchase on behalf of the town. So we would definitely be scrutinizing this truck, looking at what you said, why was it run this long, so on and so forth. Our ultimate goal is to find something with low hours, low kilometers, and a steal of a deal. That's what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Sorry?
Next question.
Sorry, I was going to say, so you said that the 20-year certification rule doesn't apply to them. Is there any sort of maintenance or certification?
With the ladder truck, it would require more on our behalf to do every year we have our EDT come down and go through all of our trucks. And that's for our insurance and underwriter purposes. So he would be doing that too. It would be more of an expense for him to do the latter part. I'm not sure exactly how much. It could be $1,000, it could be $1,500 more a year. We would have to
Roughly $8,000 every 2 years.
Is it 8,000 every 2 years? That's why I brought him. We understand it's going to be more expense to us. The risk versus over here, pay a little bit extra to ensure that this DCR is up to date. I'll do it if it saves the town of Annapolis Royal. That's what
This truck that we used for an example is currently sold from probably 3 or 4 days. So what we have to do is make a decision, come up with a number, and literally have to put 7 or 8 different used vendors. Say this is exactly what we want. It could be 6 months to a year before they have something come through that actually.
Council now as a budget. Well, really thank you. Yes, thanks very much for staying around with the new council. We appreciate it. Yes, absolutely right. So we thank you both for coming on.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
It was a lovely banquet that you held. So we have former Councillor Halfing with us, and as you probably know, but I'll repeat, for each presenter we allocate 3 minutes, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, as you know, I'm Paula Hafting, just the record. And I'm just happy to be here and to be on this side, and welcome to our new council. I'm excited to see everything that you have in store for the town. So I have sent you a couple of emails that has been circulated, and I appreciate that being in today's council package under correspondence. But I just wanted to kind of summarize why I'm here. I'm here because I just wanted to bring to your attention an issue that's kind of dear to my heart, and I feel that it's a slipping hazard. And it happens every year, and it's in the fall when the leaves see up to the traffic lights. the leaves fall and they're also blown across the street from the Garrison graveyard, and they accumulate in the curb. Accumulating and being rained on, they condense and turn into slush, like this muddy kind of, the very surface for people who are driving into town and parking and then walking through it or getting in their car. So this is something that does happen every year, and I just feel that if we could be proactive and deal with it before it becomes a slipping hazard, then we did write to council offering my help. And I know that Public Works is a busy crew. So I did go out thinking this is going to be a piece of cake. And after 2.5 hours of backbreaking work, I managed to clear the sidewalk curb from the former Pat Power residence down to the stop sign. And I cleared that with 5-gallon buckets, 2 at a time. I managed to remove 40 buckets by hand. And I did the sidewalk outside of the pharmacy as well, because we've had a lot of leaves falling that had condensed and ended up being a muddy mess, which was also a slippable. So I moved them by hand. And I did this a couple of days before the Parade of Lights, because I found a safe curb for people coming into town and parking. So I wrote again, and then the following week, before the Christmas markets, I then continued further down the road, going from St. Luke's Church in that area right there. And that took me an hour and a half, and this time I had a wheelbarrow. So that made it a little easier, but after an hour and a half of doing that, that was also backbreaking work. And so, you know, as much as I'm happy to help out, it would be ideal if there was some kind of machine that had a front loader bucket with a blade on. It would probably just take minutes to scoop them up rather than doing it by hand. Folks that have mobility issues, I just feel that this is a safety concern and one that we could just taking maybe 20 minutes once a year just to scoop up the leaves and remove them once and for all. So that's kind of my discussion, is have maybe a plan of action down the road every year in the fall, just remove the leaves and be done. Just leaves that will blow away. This is leaves that are now decomposing and creating a muddy slate that they will not move by themselves. So, and you'll see from the Garrison House up to the traffic lights that it's still there. And I can get around to doing that. I just haven't had the time yet.
Thank you. Question.
So the tire tracks create a dam, and the rainwater goes in, so then you get from soft fluffy leaves to decomposing leaves to sludge to huge puddles. And that's what people have to stand in when you get in and out of their cars, or they're crossing the road. They have to navigate that, and that's like a foot from the curb and maybe about 3 inches deep. And then this was the sidewalk outside the pharmacy. That stayed like that for about 5 days, and then I cleaned that as well. That was very, very slippable surface, and people were walking around that, but that just kind of stayed in the center of the sidewalk. And then the same night that I cleared part of the curbs, I came and cleared that as well. And it involved a flat-bladed shovel and scraping that off the surface. Otherwise, with the ice coming and freezing that would have just stuck to the sidewalk and become a real hazard. So, yes, new visuals.
Thank you. And thank you for doing.
I'll be welcome. Happy to help.
Any questions for coming in?
Thank you for saving it for Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Well, I sent it.
I sent it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I sent an email out, because as we all received from NSFM, we received the call out that there's two, Valley seats, that need to be filled on the actual NSFM board. And then there's multiple committee opportunities as well. I have a personal interest in NSFM, and so I reached out to Sandy, unsure about what the process was, because I wasn't sure if I could just express my interest or if I should bring it to the group. And she suggested bring it to the group, and see, explain what it is that I wanted to do and why. So really support the idea that NSFM creates an opportunity to lobby on behalf of the municipalities to the province. I didn't know that I was going to have music. I want to do an interpretive dance in my presentation.
Better not be sued for that.
But the whole point was simply that I really do support NSFM's ability to lobby on behalf of the municipalities for the province. And I think it would be a wonderful opportunity to have a smaller municipality represented in the conversation, because our concerns can sometimes be different than the larger municipalities. And so that's why it landed on the agenda today, is because I'm interested in submitting my name for it. And I would like to know if council would prefer I didn't or supports the idea. That's, I think, all I need to ask.
Yeah. And I think we'll include, it will cost the town some funding for mileage or.
It's minuscule. I
Yeah.
actually inquired and they told me that it's very little, probably once, maybe twice a year. There might be a reason to travel, but almost all of it is virtual.
Yeah, so but we just, would include that, if, and I think it is great to have representation, and since there is no Valley rep currently, there needs to be.
Yeah.
So someone needs to step up, and I think if Addie's willing to put the time and effort in, then I would support that.
I guess. Resources is worried that it might take away participation in like events, like the high school, like walk. Yeah, I mean, like it just where we're already sort of like
Yeah.
on.
So I'm fortunate in that my work schedule is moving to set. So I've got a lot more liberty in terms of my work schedule. So I think that part of it won't be an issue. It's not actually a ton of meeting. Like there's not a lot of meetings. So it's at this point, unless you participate in a committee, it's basically one meeting and one additional meeting. So it doesn't actually add a ton to that. And to be frank, there's also no guarantee that I get selected. So the seats are available. We don't know if somebody from the county is putting their name in or somebody from Kings County is putting their name in. So it's basically the Valley seats are this whole region. And so I could put my name in, but I still may not be selected to be part of it.
I just wondering about time commitment. I think I can do. Reference say that the reps represent their municipal positions.
That I'm not 100% sure of. I don't, from what I understood, I had some email conversation. From what I understand, there's no requirement for me to speak on behalf of council unless council tells me that they want me to take something to an SFM.
Yeah.
So I'm working on, the board works as a group, but it's a group representation as opposed to like, we're not all there representing our individual municipalities.
And I think it's just another back to the units. I think that by the Valley representative and all the different representatives that aren't board members just go and can take part and listen to the meetings, and then if there's an opportunity to share that with your own units, because I think if Addie's on, then Addie would be sharing this information with the whole Valley municipalities and units, not just Annapolis Royal.
Yeah. And I think hopefully, like, there are 2 Valley seats, so presumably I wouldn't be the only person in the Valley attending the meetings. And so, but again, there's no guarantee that it would be me at all. It's just, the question is really just whether you have any objection to me attempting it, putting my name forward. You need to do a motion or?
As long as we want to discuss it. If everybody's good, then
I will, yeah, I will put my name forward.
So at the committee of the whole meeting of December, there was a motion to do a temporary close of the work. And it was asked for staff to get some more information. So the Director of Public Works and Municipal Operations, that's not his title, went out and talked to, yeah, it was, did chatting with the current operators. That information is in the report. And then since then, we've also had the OH&S inspector come to do an site visit on the wharf. So that information is also included in your package. There were some things that had to be addressed from the motion that was deferred. So so what I'm recommending is just to temporarily close it. One, either the closure for the safety concerns are addressed, and then we can deal with that, or close it and allow for opportune time for public consultation to find out which direction. So staff are not suggesting that you do a bunch of repairs to the wharf and then go to the public and say, oh, well, the public doesn't want it. Like, we don't want to spend money until we have a clear direction of where we want to go. So that's kind of why we're hoping to temporarily close it, so that we can get all of the ducks in a row, get all the information that we need, and make one decision at the appropriate time and not rush something through.
Okay, so open for discussion, who would like to start?
So sorry, just to clarify, the public consultation is on the wharf as a whole and not just on safety concerns.
Yes, the wharf as a whole. So does the public, want to keep the wharf as maybe it could be, do you want to keep it as a working wharf? Do you want to not have it as a working wharf anymore? Do you want it just to be repaired and maintained for vehicles on half of it and walking on the other half? Do you want, there's so many options of what would be done with the wharf, and with the engineer reports every year, they seem to be getting like, you need to do more and more work. So do we want to do more work on the wharf, or do we want to, not have a wharf as an option? Do we want to look at seeing if there's somebody else that is interested in the wharf?
That's not what's before us right now.
So before you right now is why you want to close. Temporary closure for 2 reasons. One, for the safety concerns until they're fixed, or B, to go to the public and say what they want to do.
So, but that's, if we pick the first one, it could be that then we would go right ahead and do the fixing and say it takes 2 months, then the closing would be closed, and then we might, the closing would be finished, and then we might move on to then a public consultation about what's the long-term plan.
Correct.
Or we could go right to public consultation, determine what's the long-term plan, and then
decide to take action about closing or not closing.
Right.
Okay, I guess the question I would have is like the survey that was done, some of those questions were, we did sort of get a response. Do we feel like too much time has passed since that time? Do you feel like we should be, well, I guess what I'm wondering is, how do we know for certainty we were doing what to do?
Well, I think there's more options that we survey. Right, so option that I think was, do we want to see if someone else would be interested in it? Do we want to see if, per se, the Wharf Association would take it back? Do we want to see if another unit would be interested in the wharf? Right?
So would we do another survey or?
We need to get to council to get detailed information.
Also make it quick, for example. But if you demolish it, it's a the construction was about 5 million. So, and some people, despite the survey, even after the public meeting that we held earlier, didn't know, but we presented the cost information. So I think it's just that not enough people in town have spoken on it. I think basically between the survey and the public meeting, we don't really know where the bulk of the 510 or however, we don't really know where they are. So we need, we feel we need to consult more.
So, oh, sure.
I really feel that we need to survey taxpayers only in the town of Annapolis for a while. This was information. And we have a Likert scale 0 to 10, where we had a score of 2.88 for it. That was at the 5 million. We know that could be completely different. But I think and also at the top, it mentioned that grants were still in the picture where those have failed. So I think the taxpayers need to know what the worst case scenario would be to rebuild the wharf, because it is at its end of its life. It's not safe to work around.
As some of you may have seen today, I had some questions. And I apologize to Sandy profusely because she's encouraging us to submit questions ahead of time, but I really didn't have much ahead of time that I could submit them. So I sent them to her, and she answered as best she could today and sent them back, her answers back to all of us. I don't think I need to read through every question that I asked, because I don't think some of the answers were that she couldn't answer the questions today. She'd have to get that information back to us. But I would like to speak about this, because one of the concerns I had, and one of the things I did ask about was, and I still have this concern, is that I feel like this motion, we're combining elements here. So the deferred motion was a motion made by Councillor Myers, and that deferred motion was based on closing it due to safety reasons. And what's come back to us beyond that deferred motion is now because staff has made some additional recommendations, and there was also a visit by OHS in between those timeframes. And so now there's an issue related to that. I think that then additionally adding on we must make a great big decision in public consultation on top of the original deferred motion, I think is actually combining and layering too many elements into one conversation. And I 100% want to see this council make a decision about, I feel like the decision is long overdue, but I also feel that it's a one bite at a time approach. So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. To speak directly to the original deferred motion and part of this motion, I've actually made myself some notes because otherwise I won't remember everything I'm going to say. But primarily nothing tangible has changed about the wharf. We have not been seized with any new information about the wharf itself or orders from any entity that are requiring us to close it. The risk to the town now is the same risk as has always been covered under our insurance. And we have that kind of risk all over town. So we have rough sidewalks on Victoria Street where people have tripped and fallen, resulting in broken bones, but we don't close the sidewalks to get past that. People have injured themselves on the sidewalks on St. George. They've injured themselves on our playground, on our boardwalk, on our soccer field, but we haven't closed any of those down to deal with that issue. We have inherent safety risk all through the town, and rarely do we close anything to deal with it. We accept the risk, even though we know that people have injured themselves in those locations. We have not had a dramatic increase in injuries or risk on the wharf itself. I'm not aware of any new or pressing injuries that have taken place there. The major change that has taken place is that we have actually approved the spending and accepted responsibility to do some of the urgent repairs. And we've already approved that. That motion has already been passed.
Nope, it's on the agenda later on.
It's on the agenda for this. So when we approve that, it doesn't get approved until now.
No, everything. So sorry to interrupt you.
No,
First
that's
of all,
okay.
I just,
Absolutely.
while you're on that,
Yeah.
I thought maybe I could. So it was so all of the motions that go to committee of the whole are recommended to council.
To cancel to this
And
meeting.
then the council motions are then approved or.
I have more, so we'll
Yeah.
just leave that. So we'll put a pin in that we have already made a recommended motion about that. So basically, my feeling is if we followed the recommended motion that we already had agreed upon putting forward, that the materials would arrive, the work would be briefly closed while those repairs are made. But I don't support a temporary closure when nothing is being done at the wharf. When nothing has changed from today or from yesterday to today, I do not see the reason to close the wharf. The issue of the OHS compliance to me is an entirely separate one, and I'm not comfortable with them being combined into this particular subject. They require a specific action with a specific deadline, which is January 17th of 2025. And we also need to understand better what they are requesting of us in that action is standard operating procedure to other communities with similar wharves to ours. I asked that question today. We don't have an answer back, and we don't know for sure when we'll have that answer back.
So
we only have Digby, but Digby's not similar to what we have. And so we need to look at wharves that are more similar to what we have. Digby is a commercial wharf, and that's not a similar structure. Yeah. So should any work be required on the wharf before OHS matter is fully addressed, that would have to be worked out with OHS as to what would be acceptable in terms of their requirements, but they've spelled out what we need to do. They've already told us what we need to do. But I do still go back to, I think that is a completely separate issue, and there's some issues with that, and there's an appeal process for OHS if we don't agree with what their assessment was and what their compliance recommendations were. So I'm not suggesting that it's acceptable at all to have sidewalks that are tripping hazards or have a wharf that is unsafe. But what I'm trying to point out is that we either accept or mitigate risk in many situations in the town without closing our facilities down. And I believe that we should apply that same standard to the wharf, because if we apply it in one place, I think we should apply it in another. We have a bigger decision that has to be made about the future of the wharf, but that wasn't part of the original discussion or the intent of the conversation when this motion was brought forward. But it is a discussion that has to be had, and I don't want to push that off to the next council, but I think that it's two separate things. We do not have to close the wharf in order to have public consultation. So I would have to not support what's on the table.
Thank you, Councillor. We've heard from two councillors. Civil, do you want to go ahead?
And just like, that's the question I asked at the beginning. Are we talking about close the wharf, do the repairs, or are we talking about public consultation? That's the first choice we need to make in the series of things that's put before us.
So in my CIO report, it states the temporary closure until the safety concerns are addressed. That is all the safety concerns, including the ones from OH&S, because they are mandating that we mitigate the risk of falling. So that means that we have to come up with it and submit it to the inspector saying, we've done our risk analysis assessment, this is what it says, and this is when the items will be addressed. If not, then they
It's
close.
also only staff.
No, it's staff and public.
The research that I did.
Don't
said
have
no
staff and public, because it is a public place, and we're inviting the public to go on there, so we have to mitigate the risk from all the people that use the.
Have you finished with your thought or not?
Yeah, I just wanted, to me, that's the first question. It seems like now this other. It creates a bit of those safety issues. We're gonna need to do that anyways.
No, we don't have to do, well,
We have
we have to have the plan in place by January 17th.
to, whether we separate.
So we just. You can, yes. Yes, so the when you get to the motion to repair the wood.
Wheel guards.
Wheel guards, you can defeat the motion and we wouldn't move forward until we know.
Just would like to say that, so in the research I was doing about OHS and the compliance issues, the very specific stuff that is on this website is that those compliance orders apply to the work site. So when the actual work is being conducted, they don't apply to the general public being on a work site. Only when work is being conducted on the work site, so only when a staff person. That's what it said in the documents, and I provided the link to Sandy as well.
The OHS inspectors.
Yes, I was gonna say, because we did receive stuff from.
But that's also where I mentioned that there is an appeal process, because if you disagree
But I
with their
don't disagree.
assessment.
I don't disagree that the wharf should be closed. We talked about
But
it.
they didn't ask you to close it.
No, they said we had to make it safe. We have to close it until it is safe. So a railing or some kind of barrier needs to be the forest so that people can't go off the end and fall off 33 feet into the water when the ocean is out.
Okay.
So that's,
I may be missing something, but I did not read anywhere that they said the wharf has to be closed.
But that is not what they do. They issue orders.
that's, so we have
Yeah.
to fix, we have to fix what is wrong, and we can't fix it with it open. We have to mitigate the risk of fall. And so there's, there's fines in place, and yes, you can appeal it, but I'm not sure why you would appeal, mitigating the risk of the wharf.
Well, I would circle back to the question of how is this being applied to other similar wharves? We don't see that same kind of mitigation in other communities. And so I would like to know why our situation would be definitively different than anybody else's. So that to me would be a potential for why we would appeal it, is if we're being asked to do something that another municipality or another work site, even if we don't consider ourselves as just as a work site, not as a municipality, but why would our site be required to have that where other sites don't have that same requirement?
And we don't know they don't. They do, they could have.
But then it's absolutely possible that they could have, but it would seem unlikely that they would be tens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines and arrears and never doing that. We don't see that kind of work on the Lunenburg wharves, whether they are the active ones or the non-active wharves. We don't see that kind of work in Margarettsville, Parker's Cove, DeLap's Cove, any of those similar type of wharves to what we have access to with similar tidal differences like depth. So,
So, with respect, so everyone's had a chance to speak on the issue and we're allowed 2 opportunities for everything, good discussion. I speak last and I'm simply going to say that I believe there's a cost issue, that the original 15,000 that was moved could be more than that because or somebody considers it a valid order or not. I would personally think that the 15,000 is no longer 15,000, but people will be correct to say, I do not know. However, I personally will err on the side of more information, but that's personal view, and I've spoken, that's the only word I'll say on the matter. So, you have before you request for decision.
And just since we do have Ken here, don't know.
Yeah, like to have any useful.
Just a couple of things that came up. So with regard to persons, and so he cites it here in one of the letters. So it's section 19A of the OHS Act. And then just to jump to it, and this is the first page of the letters. Owners land or premises to be used as a workplace in a manner that ensures the health and safety of persons at or near the workplace. So his explanation to me is because this is a workplace, that's where their authority comes from. He has to ensure the safety of the workers, of course, but also anyone who has access to that workplace or, as this says, is near that workplace. So that's how it's including members of the public as well. And it's not just while work is occurring, it's the place itself. We have the same discussion even about the dog pond, right? Because is that a workplace that, and we use, doesn't need throw rings, doesn't need certain things. So basically anything that is a workplace comes under the OHS remit. But then anyone, their authority extends to anyone who has access to that place as well. This was the first part that came up in the discussion. I spoke with the harbor master in Digby. They have exactly the same things. The workers wear fall protection. All the fishermen are supposed to take fall protection precautions as people who are working there. And they have systems. He's not mandating guardrails per se or anything like that, but he is mandating procedures that address risk of falling, things like this. And Digby has that as well. So, I don't know all the details there, but they are applying exactly the same standard as we are being told to apply here. And again, they're in the letters themselves, he details options, and there are more options too. What he's saying is you must procedurally address this, and in some cases there is some equipment required, but he's not saying exactly how to fix it. He's saying it must be addressed, and you must present a timeline for fixing it. Obviously, ultimately, you must fix it as well, and you must mitigate the hazard. So, these were the points that came up in the discussions with him. Just in the RFP, there were a couple of points that I raised in there that were from the visit itself in the verbal discussion. This all came about because we were inspecting all of our workplaces. We were inspecting all the lift stations, and we were at the lift station at the wharf, and that's how we got to the wharf as well. And so that's why it said, that's how the wharf got included as a town workplace. And then if you guys have any other questions too, but those are just the points that seem to come up in the discussion.
Reports and safety issues must be dealt with. There will be a significant cost. So in what areas?
Because so some of the safety issues, like when I wrote the original RFP, are very, very expensive. $500. The throw, the life ring, the throw, the boat, those are inexpensive. Signage, inexpensive. Hiring a consultant to do the risk assessment, that's where we're getting into substantial costs. Depending on what the recommendations are, it's the potential for substantial costs. If so we talked about the wooden curbs, 15,000. But certainly that could be much higher depending on the course of action chosen. So that is the potential for it, because it doesn't have to be. It can be other things. Even when we're working out there, we can wear a harness and a tether, right? So it doesn't have to be X or Y, but it must be addressed. So it's the potential for substantive costs depending on the factors.
Also training, so we have to have
That's a given, right?
training around water rescue and water procedures.
Correct, and like he mentions a boat, but he's not saying buy a boat, but a boat must be part of our safety procedures. Right? The fire department has a boat, there's an emergency boat grant, so their training can occur, right? They can be part of the procedures, things like this. So what he's laying out, of course, is the compliance regime, but also just presenting some of the options that are before the town. But he's not saying buy a boat, put up the guardrail, paint it orange or anything like that.
Still getting us to January 17th to come up with the plan, but he has not required us to propose.
But they don't do that. So it's just he's saying you must mitigate the risk, and we can't ignore it. saying no.
And we did find temporary, barricades that we could use at a cost of $200 a month to rent them.
So procedurally, we still have a first motion in front of us that we need to deal with. And I agree, we have to deal with both issues, and one at a time would be preferable. So we do have a motion that is there. In training, it was made very clear to us that we can only move a motion if we are in support of a motion, which was something that came out of the training program. But other than that, is there someone prepared to make a motion?
This one specifically for.
Is the I'll read it, just to be very clear, that council move forward with the wooden curb stops for the wharf. Maximum of 20,000, putting HST in the operating budget.
That's not the.
No, the motion on the table,
No, but the one in the minutes, the first motion.
no, the first motion is under closure motion tab 2.
She doesn't have enough. It's.
So I just want to discuss that again. But it should be. Yeah. Motion or two motions.
So the first motion, the discussion that we just have is the closure for the safety
You can deal with that
concerns.
first, then.
And then if we decide to close it and not do the safety concerns, then we would not vote.
That sounds good. Is everybody in agreement? So. Have motions. The vehicles until, and it was blank, so we have to complete that.
Well, because I gave you two options. One was until the safety concerns are all addressed, or two, that you go to the public for further consultation, right?
Yeah, is everybody clear on that?
So it depends on which
So,
this council's thinking.
so there are two options that are given. Whoever makes the motion has the option of using the draft motion and completing it with options 1 or 2.
Can we not blend both of them together until safety concerns
It's
have
up
been
to us what
addressed?
the motion finally, it's up to us what the motion finally reads. And this is the stage where we craft it. It's to be different.
So somewhere in the package where it was like super clear.
I mean, it's just different.
In the requested decision,
Yeah, but even. The motion.
The council goes from her municipal to help the person in vehicles until 1 or 2.
yeah, on the list of motions.
Constitution at this point, given the. I don't know when the survey is completely himself. But I think that there's a lot of benefit to having the public consultation for a large decision and for a decision that can be somewhat polarizing. I move that council approve the temporary closure of the municipal wharf to the public, both persons and vehicles, until the safety concerns are addressed and public consultation or engagement are addressed on what the future is for the wharf before spending taxpayers' money. And public consultation and or engagement are addressed.
Did you get that, Kim?
Yes. So, still back to our training, we need to give like a concrete time frame. I'm a bit worried about that. And I guess the problem is if we wait until public consultation occurs,
That's right.
that could be like a 26 slide.
It's up to us to be specific, so I'm frank. Because it's deteriorating every day, so it's important whichever way we go that. So does anybody have a suggestion for time frame?
January 17th, 2025.
To have consultation.
We can get a consultation from her.
No, I'm
So that would be.
that was the requirement from the OHS for the safety issues.
Yeah.
Safety issues.
Sandy,
So-
what would it take to get a survey out to only taxpayers in Annapolis?
You have to speak about that too, because some taxpayers in Annapolis Royal don't live in Annapolis Royal. So there have
So
to.
they get the tax bills, huh?
Yeah.
So I
That
just
also
wanna go back
excludes
to like
some
that
residents.
January 17th date. Is they just have to have
Our plan.
have how we're moving forward. We don't have to have the safety concerns addressed by then. We have to have what we're doing. So if we let him know we are temporarily closing the wharf to, you know, because we don't, you know, and money is always kind of an issue as well. We don't have any money in the budget to do any of these costs. So, you know, if we say we're going to put them in next year's budget, so we're temporarily closing, and that will mitigate our risk of the fall until, you know, May of 2025 or something like that before the season starts up. Then that gives us the 5 months to do some research, see what we can come up with a plan to make it safer for people out there. If it's just, you know, putting the rings and the hooks and getting some training with our police department as well, because they have to be able to, they'll probably be the first ones to respond if there is an incident there or whatever. Like the plans and the procedures are gonna take time to work on and get in.
Like I'm trying to become my parallel. Say between now and 17, for us to just plan and plan for the things that we all agree that we do as soon as possible. Right. And then there's an execution from January, say, I'm just pulling it out of my head, for 2 months to execute on those two things. What I wonder is, from the perspective of keeping the wharf closed for a minimum amount of time, is if we can do those two things and open the wharf after that, and then do the public consultation. Questions of what's the long-term plan for the wharf, because to me, it seems like there are things we need to do right away to still have any option for the wharf in the future, and there are things that we need to do right away to keep people safe. And I agree with the survey and survey do the things that at least preserve the wharf as best as possible, so we continue to have a choice. I think it's a principle of the town that we look after our employees and our people and keep them safe. So dealing together the two key things of keeping people safe and keeping the options open.
Yeah, I personally would keep them separate. I would also wonder if there's an opportunity to, instead of saying something like May 2025, and yes, I did say January 17th, but I don't necessarily mean January 17th, but if there's an opportunity to do something like saying January 17th, until January 17th, at which time we revisit for the next closure period, so that we are keeping ourselves accountable to, as Sybil said, the tasks that have to be completed in the line, which will become more clear, I think, as we go along. But maybe there's a way that we could do that so that it was like we revisit this, the temporary closure, we revisit on a relatively shorter time span. So we're not closing it for 5 months or 6 months. Maybe we're closing it for 2 months. And then we revisit the timeline to see where we're at and what needs to happen next. But concurrently, while all that's happening, the public consultation is a separate thing that we need to do that's happening while those things are still going on.
Still think we have to, in those time, agree with your time here, keeping them open. But we also have to have a clear idea of even the cost of the repairs and the training going forward, because those are going to affect taxes too. All of the things we do to try to keep the wharf open is going to cost money, and it could be substantial. So that's why I feel like public consultation needs to happen.
And to your point, we're already outside budget. Already.
We're outside the budget, we're outside of repair
Yeah.
time for the
Yes,
wharf.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, because the repairs we're talking about have been asked for the last 4 years or more. So
Where hasn't been the money?
no, I'm not, and I'm not, I'm not pointing fingers or blaming, I'm just saying like, we're way outside of all of that. But I circle back to the one bite at a time, that rather than trying to solve big and encompass everything into one thing, I think we might be better served by recognizing that we need public consultation. So that's one path, that's one stream. Concurrently, while that's happening, we need to deal with the safety issues. That's another stream.
That's closing the war.
But again, that closure doesn't necessarily need to be, we're closing it indefinitely. The timeline is what I'm trying to kind of.
I think we're hearing that it can be done concurrently. I don't think there's any disagreement there, so you can decide on what is your ideal time period to take this whole issue to the public. So you've kind of got a go forward plan for the occupational health and safety. So what's your wishes in terms of public engagement? To set a reasonable time frame for that to happen.
Sandy, that would kind of depend on staff.
That I could see taking like 6 months. Because you have meetings, you might have survey, you
That's really take
practice.
6 months, not if we're talking about very substantial amounts of money. It has to happen sooner rather than later because we'll be spending public money
On
something
repairs
that-
even.
on something that we,
But then to go back to what Sybil said, they've already told us to do that.
excuse me, but there are people who do not support spending money if the wharf is not going to continue.
And there are people who support it.
There are, which is the reason for public engagement.
Yeah.
So what's a reasonable time frame? Do you think?
Well, and for public engagement, this is the worst time ever.
Exactly.
This is
Because
not a good time.
we
No.
have, everybody goes away.
Yeah.
Right, not everybody, sorry, but we have, some of the people that, are only here in the summer months and, the taxpayers. Because I think that is, the taxpayers are the ones that are going to take the burden. It's not going to be, residents that feel that this is their town. Because there's a lot of people that, see this as their town, and that is great that they support our town. But unfortunately, their tax dollars are going to the county and not us. And
Right, but there's also a lot of residents in the town who don't pay taxes, but we don't contribute to our economy. So do we exclude them?
Yeah,
yes,
they're not,
I think
yes,
you have to,
taxpayers only.
because the tax bills are where you get your budget from, right? So you make your budget on the amount of expenses that you're planning to do, and that's how you set your tax rate. So if your tax rate and Melanie
I do
has
understand that. I'm just.
Melanie
I'm just
has
little
had a
disturbed
different
by excluding residents.
problem with us going to the budget every year, because you set your tax rate on the expenses that you do, and then you keep going back and saying, oh, I need another, $20,000 for this or another this, then the taxpayers are not paying what they should be paying in taxes because the tax rate is not set at the proper rate. And then we get in trouble from the province when we get our reports back saying that we sent over our budget because we did these little motions here and there. So it is the taxpayers that are responsible for funding the repairs and maintenance of that one.
That's what I'm trying to think about is I think, those are things you're well versed in dealing with, developing the kind of public consultation. To me, that's the detail part of it that we can go. I think what we need to think about is how do we get making sure as much as possible we have a mandate of the town. That I guess my concern is from what I'm understanding people, it feels to me like what we're saying, shut down. And my concern is that could be a very protracted. And I think we have before us two buckets of things that are urgent about keeping our options open. And one is addressing the OHS safety stuff, right? And the other thing is addressing keeping the wharf in good enough condition that we can respond to a public survey and
It's too bad. And I guess,
the survey was
Just wasn't enough input.
Yeah.
Separate the two.
yeah.
the taxpayers weren't the only ones who. So we have to serve the community. Regardless of the fact that taxpayers set the budget,
It's their
we are
burden.
still obligated to serve every elector who voted for us, and that's not only taxpayers.
So perhaps we can just get the time, the time. Let's just start with something very practical. So you're saying it can be now, totally get
Well-
that. What's the reasonable time?
Have, you know, let's say a quarter might be generous if the people are away now.
Well, one of the
It would
effective
come to-
things, when you held that meeting, the really well-attended one that was at the Legion, one of the effective tools you used was putting that notice in, I believe it was it water bills or tax bills that the notice went out in? But it was really effective. Like we had way more people at a public meeting than we'd had in
It
years.
was multiple numbers. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's a very important meeting and it covered an awful lot of.
But I just think that the notice for that was very effective. And so if we were going back to a survey of some sort and we used that same kind of notice again, even if they're not here, people are getting well, as long as there's not a strike, people are getting that information. And that was really
What
exceptional.
conditions do we need to have for a survey that we would be confident in? What percentage of involvement from the community, would people?
That we can get, we have a local mathematician, no problem there, we can get that.
Yeah,
My question simply is, what are you recommending in terms of time? Fair time.
For what? What I, like,
For
just the
public engagement.
engagement.
That could be combined with survey.
I guess my point was when
It doesn't need to be surveyed.
people could
Yeah.
feel comfortable that the engagement.
It doesn't need to be a survey, it could be a public meeting, it could be both, it could be.
How do we get a mandate from something that's just a conversation? We wouldn't be able to get.
Well, it's been done in the past. You know, sometimes this is a case where we need more information we have now.
Yeah.
More feedback than we have now. It can be in written form. For example, if we were taking out a mortgage or whatever, we might want to do a written survey, put it all out there. Here are the terms you agree, yes, no, here are our options. It can be done, but it's when is the right time to do it? I guess is the question. Whatever we will do.
I think if it's a survey of some form, whether it looks, that can be done at almost any time if we are going to the direct contact method. So it's getting in people's mailboxes or things like that, not just posting a link or putting it in the town crier. That wouldn't be
And that
enough.
could be done. It
Yeah.
can go too long.
If that were the case, then that can be, and I'm kind of looking to Sybil because she has a lot of experience in this, that would probably be able to be done at any time.
But then anything that's on paper is a lot more work, because then some person or persons are then tabulating and in.
Oh, no, maybe the paper that you're sending out is the
Just
link
the
to the information, but I'm saying
And
that
have to
literally
be
lands
shared.
with the individual. Because you can actually restrict how people fill out surveys. You can require passwords, you can require one person per address, per household, whatever. You wouldn't want to do it necessarily one person because there's more than one ratepayer in properties, but I'm saying that there's there's means by which you can control how many people can, or how people can reply, and whether or not, like, you don't have to have it wide open. That
So I
doesn't
don't think-
mean necessity.
So, to me, a priority tonight is not how we're going to.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Reach the public and discern, I think, and, you know, my concern is the work just needs to be closed. And we can do it in a 2-month period and just keep rolling it over if you need reports done or whatever. It's not gonna be closed until probably January anyways, because it is now Christmas and
So that's all
breaks
we need
and-
to add to the motion is a time period. You've got the motion,
so I think
you could put 2 months in if you wish, or whatever period.
Yeah.
So you could say for a period of 2 months from,
Thought we weren't doing, thought folks had strong feelings about not
Separating
separating them.
I think it's two separate motions. in my
Right.
opinion. One is about the time. That's, and the other one is the participation. Both things need
to address the public.
Oh, no, even if we did a motion to say that we want to do
The
it.
motion we've got, of course, right now, safety issues are addressed. And we take out in public discussion. And so are addressed and to be reviewed within a period of 2 months. Or
Can I make a suggestion? Because I don't think in 2 months we can address the safety issues. I think what we can do in 2 months. Well, just concerns from the engineering report. If we're gonna give it a 2 month limit, then to me that seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, you correct me, but I
So the motion could simply stop it until the safety issues are addressed.
But then there's no accountability for time.
Well, we are accountable for the
but
what's reasonable.
That's due by January 17th.
yes. Takes you- Safety action. So what I suggest the motion could say is something, you know.
Because you don't know what the actions are.
Yeah.
Right.
So safe with the safety issues are addressed. And then you could have ever. Yeah. You could have both. Yeah.
The staff
That
is
has to
doing
be
the
done
plan.
by January 17th.
The staff are doing the plan, that's operation.
Okay.
So,
They will be addressing it in their
Yeah.
plan.
If you're comfortable with it, just for me to address means that everything would be done, we're all.
no, nothing's gonna be done by the 17th, except the assessment and the plan.
Yeah.
And that will be sent in.
So we have a shorter motion. Relatively comfortable. Yeah.
I still think it has
Yeah, if it doesn't have a timeline, I don't think it's an appropriate motion.
that we do it 2 months and then we have.
And we revisit it.
And we revisit it in 2 months, because 2 months will give us time to actually get some questions answered, some
And
responses.
you should have
some
heard back from
options.
the January 17th deadline within that time frame.
Exactly.
And so we'll have more information in 2 months.
Temporary closure for a period of 2 months.
So, or just not, let's give it a date. So that's January, February, end of February.
Yeah.
So February 20,
No.
it's a Friday.
February 28th.
Yeah.
2024.
Okay.
Good, I think we have a.
Public slash.
Okay.
After all, we plan for clarity and cancel the temporary closure until February. Who seconded? Who's ready for the question? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Nay?
No, and I'd like my no recorded in the minutes, please.
Motion carried. Good discussion.
So now, do you want to just make a motion that you would like to see some public input options for forward? Just to like follow up on the second part of that.
Yeah, that's
And
what I
what
was
we decided
encouraging.
tonight,
And
just
give
that,
some options.
and yeah.
So that gives the staff direction to start working towards that.
Wonderful. So we're agreed on that.
Sure, district staff, as long as it's in the minutes.
Yeah.
somehow. It's clear to people that we're, this is step one, and then, there's step 2 and 3, or 2A and 2B, which is consultation.
So if we record this in the minutes, that staff is being provided with direction to provide council with options for public engagement as soon as possible, or something like that.
Yeah.
So does somebody want to make a motion and word it better than I just did?
What, do we need a motion or just?
No, we can just have it reflected. To
You see, you're not gonna do motion one. You're gonna wait before you dispense that. Oh, that's a question.
This
Well,
is for
just-
it's only nothing else. Like if somebody would have.
And we've
to make a
already been-
motion for it to go forward.
Yeah.
Okay, but I thought I heard from everybody they're not and spending that kind of money with the mandate that we currently have, so. Until the 2 months is up.
If it's not moved, the motion just dies. Okay.
Yeah. How would you want to start?
So the council approved the officials. 02 dated December.
The applicant be given heritage approval to replace a window at the rear of the property with a metal door to match the existing metal door and add an accessory structure shed as detailed in the application 24-30-HER, providing the requirements of the land use bylaw are met.
Okay.
Second that motion.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Thank you. Good question. Okay.
I move that council approves the applicant at 494 St. George Street retroactively be given heritage approval to replace the ground sign as detailed in the application 24-3131-HER, providing the requirements of the land use bylaw are met.
Got that. Question. Everybody, any question? That's what I did. That's my goal.
think that should just pass.
Yeah.
That
So
shouldn't,
there's no seconder?
No.
If we're not seconding.
I move that council approves the appointment of Deputy Mayor Skinner Robertson to be the town's representative for the 20 committee for the term of 1 year ending December 31st, 2025.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. That council approves the appointment of Spencer Reynolds to the be the town's representative for the Natal Day Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2025.
I'll second that.
Ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Wasn't he gracious about accepting that role too?
And motion 10 has been deleted,
moved. Yes, motion 10 was removed. Okay.
I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to let you know I've had a number of messages saying that nobody can hear what's happening. It's cutting it up if you can't actually hear it.
Effective valve. We apologize for the sound. We apologize for the situation. Thank you. People to do everybody apparently.
It's not catching the words, so it's not catching. We're seeing it here, but it's apparently not catching a lot of what we're saying.
Jason Pond, not Jason Boyd. He would be the video representative. The United States minute. He said 10, 11 United States minute is to keep you. So it's in there. I didn't have to. They produce it. Today. In the meeting invitation, they didn't say where it would be. Here.
it's at the actual waste management.
Waste
site.
management inside. Yeah. So. I was thinking, I wish to see it's a good way to familiarize and be there. See it. So you get the invitation, I'll get the address information, but anybody wants to go, can go.
January 15th.
January 15th. And I put the time in my calendar.
1 o'clock, I think. I'll send, I have the calendar.
Okay,
So I'll send
thank
it.
you. So that's it for my report.
My report was 2 pages this month, so I guess I was busy. I'm not sure if you have any questions. I don't think I have anything to add. So upstairs on the second floor, the server room, there's a door that goes out to the roof. So that now has a patio in it. And then if you're upstairs and you go through the old council chambers, there's the flat roof here, and there is a door where Santa used to go out. The three units. Three foundation.
I did send a digital copy to Kim, so she has it, but I will quickly read my update. So the medic report, the primary update for medic is actually reflected in the motions that the committee recommended. So the majority of that is that. But in addition to foregoing the pursuit of the UNESCO designation, there was discussion about how MEDIC could encourage greater recognition of our existing National Historic District and presence in the existing UNESCO designated Southwest Middle Biosphere Reserve. Say that 10 times fast. As noted, Deputy Mayor Skinner Robertson and Spencer Reynolds were appointed to MEDIC subcommittees, the Twinning Committee and the Natal Day Committee, respectively. The twinning mandate was recommended for approval, but we didn't get to deal with that motion because the copy wasn't sent out, is what I understand. So, but what was decided by MEDIC was to pause the student exchange program for 2025 because the twinning committee itself doesn't exist yet. So it seemed unfair to burden them, commit the unknown members to a program that may or may not have a capacity to be properly managed. So just a pause for this year, not a cancellation. MEDIC is still looking for one more member. According to its mandate, it needs one member of the Annapolis Royal business community. And there was also discussion about partnering with other municipalities or businesses to participate in Saltcape's Expo in May 2025, and options are being explored. Upcoming dates, the next MEDIC meeting is January 14th, and the next roundtable for the community and the businesses is February 18th, 2025. The Natal Day Committee is currently scheduled to meet on January 13th, 2025. So the motions for the PHAC were dealt with just moments ago. Other business included discussions around the recent delisting of heritage property in Annapolis County and how it might impact Annapolis Royal. The committee feels that being proactive in providing the community with useful information would be helpful. To that end, there was a commitment to do 3 articles to appear in the town crier and potentially be shared via email, plus social media, however we want to get the word out. The first topic is insurance for heritage properties, and that'll be ready for the January-February edition of the town crier. The second topic is around heritage fines on private property. They're hoping to review some of the interesting things people have found on their properties. And the third is a review of the 3 detailed histories available about the town of Annapolis Royal. That's the Historic Annapolis Royal, Images of Our Past by Ian Lawrence, A History of Fort Royal Annapolis Royal 1605 to 1800 by Brenda Dunn, and A History of Annapolis Royal, A Town with a Memory, Volume 2, 1749 to 2005 by Barry Moody. PHAC's next meeting is January 6, 2025. I have something to do already there.
Thank you for that. All right, Board of Police Commissioners, Councilors, Sankowski, we've got your report here. Does anybody have any questions? Next, we have library report.
This will be a quick one. This board has not met yet. So the first meeting to select officers will be held in Berwick on January 16th, 2025, and the first official board meeting will take place virtually on February 20th, 2025.
Okay, I will say interim board, you have my report.
I think that's what the head do to Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes, right.
I'm not giving up the guys to like attended the parade instead of the meeting.
So there was no other council on that one, right?
No.
Environment, what we gonna take minutes. I should know. The light bulb went off. We discussed the impairment and next year. We had Plain Foundation and see if she was interested, if council would be interested in her coming and doing a presentation of the options are. We can work with them. They're free, like we've got them for 3 years under that contract that we signed. So that they would come and do 2 sessions with the Environment Committee and Council to bring you up to speed. It's kind of like a 101 environment, what's weather and what's what the difference between weather and climate change is. And then another session just on liability issues around climate change. So we're going to set that. And I think
That is good.
January 6th. Imperative is to get it done very, very soon, because you may know they're subject to a very large reserve fund study, which basically deals with the building, the whole building, everything, every system, everything in it. The costs are outstripping the projections that were in the original reports. There have been 2 of these studies done for reserve funds, having enough reserves to maintain the building and so on. So the second reserve study is out of date, and since then we've had COVID, major escalation of everything's gone out. So the board has decided to use the strategic plan as their big envelope, and the reserve fund will sit within that. So that will be the fastest way for them to get to a plan. They have condominium documents, they have the act, the declaration, they have the bylaws. So they have plenty of structure, the regulatory structure is set. So they're very ambitious. They're going to do this in 5 hours in a single meeting. By preparing ahead of time and doing a lot of input. And it's going to be facilitated by one of their residents who is the new board member who has experience in strategic planning. So, and they're going to, we're using a standard outline. So that's the major thing to report there. So there's a lot on their plate. The building, the final thing is the value of the building far exceeds the original stated values. That's no surprise to anybody. That is a challenge also for the owners. Friends of the pool over to Council Sakaki, and there's a report here too. Any questions?
So it had no luck yet with the pool operator.
At the time of the meeting, they were still trying to reach out to the county. So I think that there has been contact made with the county. I don't necessarily know what the outcome is, but I think we're trying to sort of collaborate with the counties, because obviously there's other pools in the surrounding areas that also require certain measures. So if we work together with the other pools, then I think that will in itself well.
And Bakerstown have their own ORDC. I don't know who it is, but they are in a similar situation. They have a community pool society. So you might want to check, because Lawrencetown seems to have everything.
Yep, and they're very cooperative minded.
Yes, they are.
Like they think that way, so that.
Yes.
Successful fundraising. We did that.
Yeah.
Thank you for your because for sure we need to have a whole citizen concern on curbside, so that's up for discussion next.
I'm just wondering, so that, I don't know what we call it, the sludge. The leaf sludge, there you go. So the leaf sludge in the road like that, or even on the sidewalks, is, if something happens to somebody on that, the town is liable? The town, like if somebody broke their leg on slipping on that stuff, they sue us? I'm asking the question, do they sue us?
they could. But the Motor Vehicle Act also states that the cars have, and I'm probably in the wrong era or whatever, but that there is the responsibility that when you park up to the curb, that you step on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
not on the road when you're getting out of your
But
car.
then we saw the stuff on the sidewalk too.
Yeah, so
So
the
we-
sidewalk bylaw states that the property owners are responsible to clear their sidewalk in front of their business.
But not
Not the road.
part of the roadway,
Yeah.
just to the.
And they can't clear it
of the
off
sidewalk.
to the, they
Well,
can't
that's what,
put it off onto the road.
But they do.
Well, I get where I'm going with this is I wonder if part might be helpful to the concerns that been raised is maybe that's an education campaign, like a sending, in the town crier on the Facebook page, maybe sending a notice out in whatever, saying, hey,
every year, we
Yeah.
put that out there at the beginning of winter that the business owners are responsible, remind them.
but that's snow removal. And so this is a kind of a more unique problem that
Yeah.
happens earlier in the season.
And usually spring, we let them know that they're responsible to get the dandelions that are between the building and their sidewalk out and so, yeah, so.
I'm just saying, trying to look at it's obviously a problem. I mean, there's no doubt that it's an issue, but what can we do to help mitigate it? And if we aren't able to be the ones to pick it up, then can we at least help activate those who are supposed to be the ones that are cleaning it up?
Remember there was street cleaning at some point, right? Is that in the past now? But it used
Right.
to be an
Well,
annual thing.
for, once again, this week, we haven't had, it's only Wednesday, but we haven't had all 3 employees in this week again.
Yeah.
So when you're working with 2 employees.
Yeah.
And priorities are not to, get those leaves off because they're working on bigger projects. It makes it hard with the small crew
Yeah.
to do that kind of stuff.
Is there even a piece of machinery that could quickly remove it? It's one side of the street. Is there?
So we have like a street sweeper.
Attachment that.
Yes, but then you also have to, then you would be bringing in, when there's no cars on the street because you wouldn't get to go around, right?
So that'd be overtime.
Yeah, and so we also have to backhoe that. Once again, like we usually, when the first snow falls, the backhoe will like
Right.
clear it all out when the
Eventually.
first snow falls, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I guess I was looking for low hanging fruit that might not cost us much time or money
Hire Paul.
to be educational.
About to start paying her.
I don't think she's looking for another job, but I just thought that educational component might make a difference.
Well, it's worth a try, and
Yeah.
I could certainly in my mayor's message, I don't know if anybody reads that either, but I would certainly be able to focus on it because it's an issue. And maybe that is that, they're probably thinking about snow. It's a good, and it's worse this year. Yeah, it's because of.
Just the way the wind blew and it pushed it all
It just
into one
works the
place. Yeah.
And if we start getting more rain, then we're gonna get snow, then it could be last a longer.
Yeah.
With
But I think
change.
actually to Simple's point just now, maybe people might be confused a little bit by what the message is. And so maybe it's just that we have a spring message, we have a fall message, and we have a winter message.
Well, I'm happy to write up something.
But it would only be a suggestion.
Well, no,
On
one
the
thing we do
sidewalk.
for the sidewalk itself, we do.
But it's off the sidewalk.
Right, so we don't have a solution for that.
Yeah, she had
Yeah.
pictures
Oh,
of
yeah,
those.
yeah, oh, the sidewalk, yes, but not sludge on the road, which is huge.
And if the sludge on the road had been there and you were fully stopped, normally it would be a doctor, but it's.
Well, they haven't done it. for the last
You should give it to. You right?
The leaves are coming from.
Like we haven't done it in the last past 2 or 3
Yeah,
years.
there
because of
used to be
staffing.
regular street cleaning
Yes.
every year, or
Yeah,
actually
it's a
twice a year. one time.
Huge cost because
Yeah.
we contracted it out.
Like a big street cleaner came and.
Yeah.
So that would be the solution, is hiring the street cleaner, and it's something that we should probably consider a budget along with everything else, and then you make the decision then. So
But no
that's something
cost.
we do.
Like I don't know if a blower would even do it because it's all wet and it's
We'd have to get-
it's all sludged, yeah.
Unless you got.
Before,
Yeah.
yeah, but then.
And then
you know,
have-
This year, if it's not worse, because we, these last few years haven't had snow so early, so.
I think if it snows,
think the stuff that Paul's been cleaning up was before it snow. It was just the extra rain that really.
And then it's
Turned
like,
into
how many times are you going to send staff out to clean it?
Yeah.
Right?
You gotta
Like,
wait
you
till
can't-
all the leaves are gone. Free, so you only have to do it once. And it's gonna.
As long as we convince all the trees to drop their leaves at the
That's
same
right.
time.
Order one big. Do?
To do what? Who's up? You.
Well, nobody signed up for the thing, but.
No, but I was gonna consider a different day. You should be the, say, bring your shovels out and do this.
Yeah.
Because I could go.
Many hats makes like work, so yeah. You know, so a little
Well, okay,
sections
so
at a time.
it's not, there's a like. So if the environment committee could come up with something like a date or something, I'd be willing to
ask
sign it. Yeah,
Yeah, I too.
could say that we've already. Yeah.
There's something.
Everybody should be.
But hopefully we're gonna take care of by Saturday.
So just thank you. Thank you to the minutes from all of us. Yeah. So, Bishop, we've achieved our objective. Move. To. Yes.